So this is me trying out some live action to see whether the video works, whether the audio works, and it seems that it does. I don't know, maybe, I guess we'll see afterwards. And if it does, yeah, we can do more live in future. Yeah, so it looks like maybe people are here. Hello, if anyone is here. Yeah, this is me just trying to test things out. So I'd appreciate if anyone's tuning in. Yeah, just a bit of feedback if you can hear, that would be great. And if the video looks okay, if the streaming quality is okay. I thought I would, whilst I'm here, if people show up, talk a little bit about awakening, talk a little bit about life challenges, some of the things that we have to deal with, some of my own challenges that I've been dealing with recently, and yeah, see how it goes from there. So, lovely. I see. That's great. I'm glad it's working. So this is all kind of new to me, the live situation. So just trying to get my head around it for the first time, but it's really nice. So yeah, I've even though there's been videos coming online from me a lot recently, I've been struggling quite a lot with illness, with chronic illness recently. So I've been spending most of my time tending to that, tending to, well, how to live a life um, with an ongoing pain condition. Hey, pain, nice to see you. Oh, thank you. Yeah. Um, yeah, so it's been, I would say probably the last 3 months has been maybe some of the most challenging times of my life, which is really interesting because obviously I talk a lot about awakening, and a lot of people talk about spiritual awakening. And there's kind of the idea that there's going to be this like quick fix, um, somehow that upon awakening, we're going to see through all these delusions and then everything's going to go a-okay forever. And well, that's just not in line with the nature of things. And even though I knew that, and even though that was deeply embodied, and obviously part of the awakening process is waking up to the impermanent nature of things, it's impossible to see how you're still stuck or attached until life kind of throws you into the deep end and says, look at how you're sticking. Look at where you've been, yeah, trying to find solidity, safety, refuge in conditions that are impermanent. And yeah, my illness has kind of forced me to face up to that. So see, asking, would I say my illness can be cured? Or would I say illness can be cured? Well, I guess different illnesses can be. It's an interesting thing. The illness I suffer from is a chronic pain condition. It's related to the nervous system, um, but it's pretty mysterious. I mean, it's pretty common. It's called fibromyalgia, um, but which a lot of people have, believe it or not, but there's hardly any information out there about accurately what it is. The best people think about or know about it is it's an inflammatory autoimmune disease. So it's a disease that causes the body to attack itself in an autoimmune response, causing, due to inflammation and causing further inflammation. But they think it's in the brainstem, actually. They think that it's like inflammation, not just in the body, like arthritis, but in the brainstem, which is why it's so difficult to treat. So I guess the long answer to the question you're asking is maybe not for me. I don't know. Like maybe my illness can just be managed and finding new ways of living with it. I think balance is going a long way. Finding how to live a balanced life. has been the key. It was clear that I was out of balance in a lot of ways, putting too much effort into too many things, because I felt like a lot of emotional capacity and kind of, yeah, availability, you could say. Like with the awakening process, a lot of things are freed up. Um, hey there, how you doing? Yeah, with the awakening process, a lot of things are freed up. So like rumination, mind identification, the stickiness of managing life through thought. A lot of that is freed up. But with that comes like sometimes the idea or the feeling that, oh, well, I can do anything. I can kind of like turn my hand to anything. I've got capacity to offer one-to-one sessions and group sessions and do YouTube videos and like work in a really challenging job and do all of these things. And actually, all of those things take a toll. There's an energetic toll to anything that we do. And I was out of balance. I was just kind of like burning through so much energy without knowing how to resource myself, because there wasn't much of a story going on about what's happening. I was just kind of going on feel. And yeah, it's been, well, actually, it was fine until it wasn't fine. That's what I found most recently. About 3 months ago, I kind of like the nervous system just fell over. It just completely collapsed to the point that I was, and I've not really spoke to many people about this, but I was in bed, completely out of it, unable to move pretty much for at least a month, uh, in kind of waves of agony and disassociation. So not mental disassociation, like the body kind of disassociating from the moment, kind of turning itself off because it couldn't deal with what was going on. So total collapse. And it was frightening, like one of the reasons why it's frightening is because actually the simple things that we take for granted. So I'm not talking about, being able to go out and go for fancy meals or anything. I mean, just going to work, just being able to go to work. These doors were being slammed shut in my face. I wasn't able to get out of bed. I wasn't able to even watch TV, really. That was too much of a drain. So it's been very challenging to face up to the fact that I can't do all of these things again. So Payne, you're saying, yeah, about chronic illness, severely bedridden for 1.5 years, trying to embrace chronic fatigue, gut, brain. Oh, I feel you so much. Like, I totally feel you. It's you can't really describe it to people until it happens to you. When you say, "Oh, it's like this," or so, for instance, you say, "Well, I've been bedridden for a year," let's say. Well, that creates an image in the mind, but the truth of that experience is it's so debilitating. You find, in my experience, just like I said, doors closing all around you. Like, I didn't think that I was imagining futures, which is interesting. Certainly at this stage of awakening, I didn't think that I was imagining that the future is going to be like this. I was very much living in the present. It felt very much like I was living in the present, but there was an underlying assumption in the body mind, that isn't based in thought, um, that was assuming there was a future. And that is fascinating. There were no thoughts of future. My thoughts weren't future oriented. I wasn't trying to plan for the future, or, I was very much living moment by moment. But as soon as it became really apparent that I cannot continue like this, and actually there's a good chance that I may never be able to do these things again, it became immediately clear that the felt presence of imagining, like the bodily presence of imagining, was being challenged directly. There was an underlying assumption somewhere in the being that, oh yeah, I'm going to be able to go to work. I'm going to be able to get up out of bed. And actually, when I was unable to do that, it was like a brick wall. It's like it was a truth that was unnegotiable, that I've had to really sit with and face up to. Yeah, quite often so much as lifting an arm is beyond my capacity. Oh, pain, I'm so sorry. And yeah, there are long COVID, 3 years sitting on a couch. Yeah, man, it sucks. Like it just sucks. And what's interesting is that there are a number of videos in the world and people in the world talking about healing mechanisms that will free us from our long-term chronic illness. And to be fair, I think they're a little bit short-sighted. I think they're based on an individual experience and they don't really take into account the many, because there are many, many people for whom that's not the case. Many, many people. I speak to many people. I'm one of those people who's been managing illness for years. And like, yeah, I've learned a lot of methods and a lot of ways to work with this, and awakening's been a beautiful part of being able to open to life with joy and love and connection. And yet I still manage this chronic illness. I still have to manage this chronic illness. This is life. This is the life that is available to me. It's one that has its ups and downs, a nervous system that is kind of exhausted, and maybe an habitual way of being in a world that is out of balance. Yeah. So anyway, I've been kind of working with this a lot in the last 3 months. So even though there's been videos on YouTube in the world, I've not really been there for them. There's a lot of pre-recorded material. Whilst I've been trying to really simplify life, I can see asking, could we consider illness is trauma-based? Well, I guess it depends which one. Bear in mind, I'm no expert. I'm certainly not a medic. But with regards to my illness, my chronic illness, definitely rooted in trauma and complex post-traumatic stress. It's so clear. I can feel the way in which, from such a young age, my nervous system has just been flexed, like in every moment been in a state of hypervigilance. And at one stage, maybe 20 years ago, that presented as things like addiction issues or, kind of ruminating thoughts, deep anxiety, panic attacks, those kind of things. After 20 odd years of this continual, well, I say I'm pulling this face, you don't even notice it's happening. It's kind of like your nervous system's so wound up due to hypervigilance. It's like a grip that you take to be yourself. And then, after 20 years, it's beyond just kind of, oh, well, I've got CPTSD symptoms. Yeah, the body's become ill, So it's been really, really challenging. Overcoming severe chronic pain with mindfulness meditation by being integrated channel on YouTube has been relief out of many of these videos. Oh yeah, lovely. There's another guy who's been really good, called Pain. I think he's called Pain Free You. I don't know if you know the guy called. He's got a channel called Pain Free You. That's really helpful. It's really, really helpful. Just giving a bit of guidance onto some of the mental and like psychological conditioning that continues to make us, suffer and struggle with our illness. Is it true that I can't recognize oneness when I'm uncomfortable by Freedom Beyond Recovery? Oh yeah, lovely. I like that. I like the sound of that. Yeah, and there's another guy as well. I can't remember what his name. I think I found him on Instagram called Stop Chasing Pain. He talks about the lymphatic system, like blood drainage, being able to breathe properly, breathing through the nose, correct use of the tongue. So it's kind of new to me, a lot of these areas, but these have been helpful for me as well. Is it true that I can't recognize oneness when I'm uncomfortable? I love that. I mean, no, that isn't true. There's a continual recognition in my experience of unity. It's totally unified, and that includes pain. And actually, to be truthful about it, that pain hurts. It does actually hurt, And I think there's too many. I say there's too many. There's a lot of people out there trying to paint a picture that we're going to get a situation where you just meditate your pain away. But the human being is a sensitive thing, isn't it? Like, we're sensitive creatures. So if there is a body that's experiencing pain and we try to bypass that pain with meditation, well, what is that? Is that opening to truth, or is it a subtle bypass? And I'm not saying it's bad or wrong, but ultimately there are physical, real, pragmatic things that we can do to help us work with pain. And definitely what's been helpful for me, less the meditation side of things, because I'm very deeply grounded in meditation. I've been doing it for a very long time, and less the mindfulness side of things. It's actually been more habit, like working with my day-to-day practices and habits and planning and scheduling. Those are the things that have really benefited me, like learning how to pace myself in life, which is something I've never really paid any attention to, because I guess in the past I've never had to. But now it doesn't matter how much oneness you could call it, or unity there is. That's not, it doesn't matter how in contact with truth I am. If I overstep my energetic resources, there is a lot of pain. There's a lot of suffering. So then part of growing up, in a way, like part of just being like mature in my own well-being and health, is learning how to resource myself physically, just like in a day-to-day fashion. So one of those ways was back away from a lot of commitment. So unfortunately, I've had to cancel a lot of one-to-one like non-duality like consultations. I don't know what you call them really, but like meetings with people I work closely with. I've had to just say, listen, I can't do it. I've also not been able to work, which has been really difficult. I'm back now tentatively, but being able to own up to that, being able to own up to that is really, I think, important and hard, because for me, and this is where the trauma thing comes in, for me, there's so much shame associated with not being capable, like such deep toxic shame that's baked into my being, with regards to like sitting in bed, unable to move, and then not only the experience of being like wiped out in pain, then these feelings, these deep recesses of shame arising, saying you're useless, you're worthless, you're not good enough, because all of the ways I used to tend, I guess, to shame were being taken away from me. I had no ability to be useful in the world. There was no ability to go to work, make videos, help people, which I love doing. But actually, when there's a little feeling of shame, actually doing something worthwhile, that can tend to it. It can ease it. And when that's taken away from you, just flat out in bed, I could feel these waves of just disgust like slapping into me. There's like this second wave of, not only am I unable to move, I feel totally just disgusting, just terrible. Just there's like these feelings of deep disgust. And that's the nature of shame, isn't it? It's the disgust response which has been conditioned. And what's been fascinating is I've had to come to the conclusion, and this is the conclusion that shame never wants you to see, is that the only way to meet that shame is with others. And shame doesn't want that. Shame wants, like, no, don't let anybody see you like this. Like, move away. Step away from anybody seeing you, because if people see how worthless you are, this is the voice of shame. If people see how worthless you are, you will be abandoned, you will be left, you will be ostracized, you won't be able to be in the world, and that will be too much to deal with. However, the only thing that tended to these overwhelming kind of waves, torrents of shame that would arise because of my inability to do anything, was connection with people, was saying to people, this is what's going on. This is how I feel. This is the shame in the moment. And it's crippling, and I need help. And actually asking people, asking my family and my friends, asking professionals for help. It's kind of the last thing that shame wants to do, but also the only thing that will heal shame, as far as I can see. This, in my experience, it's the only real antidote to shame, is the courage to meet people with authenticity. And hopefully there's a flavor of this now, to be open in the world and saying, listen, I don't have all the answers. I don't actually know what to do to guarantee any kind of permanent well-being in life. And to say that openly has been really, really helpful, because people say, well, that's okay. We can stand by you. We can be by your side. And that's been really useful. And I'd also say that, a lot of spiritual speakers, like a lot of them, even the very, very well-known spiritual speakers online, they sound like they've got it all figured out, and they haven't. Like, and what I mean by that, that's not to say that they're a mess. I don't mean that at all. I mean, deeply, deeply valuable messages, deeply, deeply valuable people, but they don't know what's next. That's the nature of this. They don't know what this is. It's waking up to the mystery of life, and that mystery can include chronic pain, chronic illness, loss. It will include old age, sickness, and death. That's the nature of this impermanent life. And I think there's a lack of authenticity sometimes with people online, because they don't speak about that. They don't say, well, actually, yes, there's freedom from self-identification, and also life is challenging. There's both of those things. There's freedom, there's an open heart, there's no fixed self, and yet life keeps meeting me with challenges. And yeah, we're better able to meet those challenges when we're not self-centered and self-obsessed. But life is challenging, and it will be challenging all the way until the end, basically, because like the challenge of going through a dying process, being in a body that dies, that's gonna be a challenge, isn't it? And I love, so someone mentioned Adyashanti. Yeah, I love this. Adyashanti's retirement story scared me. After this dark night of his soul, he would still experience 10 plus years of severe. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's it. I mean, that beautifully points to everything that I'm talking about, because we are biophysical organisms. This is a human manifestation. We're not just spirit. So you could say that the spiritual life is one of learning that we're not just the body, we're not just the self, we're not just physical, we are spiritual as well. And we manifest like this as human beings. And these bodies, they're fragile, sensitive things. And I think in Adyashanti's case, he suffered a lot of pain, like a lot of pain. So much so that his working with pain and dealing with pain caused a traumatic stress response. That it kind of goes to show that actually life is challenging. And it doesn't, for me, I think if he would have been maybe a little bit more open about that at the time when it was going on, that could have been beneficial to people, because people could see, oh, look, you are this deeply realized human being, and you are experiencing the truth of old age, sickness, and death right now, and you're meeting this suffering. Like a friend of mine wanted to release a book called The Buddha Had a Bad Back, which I like. So, and that's true. Like, certainly, like in the last 20, 30 years of his life, the Buddha often spoke about the difficulty and the pain that he suffered in his body, because he had like some back problems and postural problems. He's been sleeping in a jungle for years. Like, that's the nature of being human. It is challenging, but we're better able to meet those challenges with an awake, open heart, at least in my experience. Yeah, I wanted to coin that, but I think I'm going to have to give my friend the credits for that, should he release a book. But yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because, and I know there's been, well, I'm not going to talk too much about it. There's been some so-called controversy online between non-dual speakers and all this kind of stuff. But I think a lot of that comes from maybe a lack of willingness to be authentic in the discussion of awakening and spiritual matters. You know, people, I think Jeff Foster really, for me, he's a shining light really in the world of awakening, because especially now, like, he just oozes humanity. He's so vibrantly awake. He's so vibrantly free from self-centered delusion, and yet he's so human, so richly, juicily, like authentically human in his expression, in the things that he does, and he never shies away from that expression. I think that kind of communication is something that is, well, I can't speak about how valuable it is. I think it's beyond valuable, because if I was to paint a picture of a purely spiritual life where there's total ease all of the time, well, that doesn't help people when they're suffering. It doesn't help people when, even when they've awoken, they come into contact with real pain, you know, a real degrading, suffering, aging body, because that's what we've got. It will go that way. So, like, yeah, I think people that have the courage and authenticity to speak about uh, the truth of what it is to be a human being, well, for me, like, that's the good stuff. That's the juice, you know, that's the grit. That's what gets the fires burning in me. Because if I've heard it once, I've heard it a million times about how we can, like, wake up beyond ourself and have no self-realization and end of suffering and all these things. And it's useful, but it paints a picture of attainment. And then people will try and try and try to attain this thing, this so-called thing, this imagined thing, which is, well, it's just, I don't know what it is actually, other than the imagination. It's not rooted in the reality of a human experience. It's an imagined experience, because any so-called peace that comes will go. That's the nature of being human. It comes and goes, it comes and goes. So actually, like, opening up to that coming and going of experience, including those moments of peace and love, as well as pain and sorrow. I mean, for me, that's where the freedom lies. So, like, recently, my cat passed away, which was yeah, deeply moving for me, because, and it's interesting. Some people that don't have pets maybe don't vibe on this, but she was a very, very dear friend to me. I probably spent more time with her than any other being other than my partner. So the connection, the heartfelt connection with this creature was so deeply, uncomplicatedly loving. And yet, uh, yeah, in the midst of having let go of so many ideals of, hey, Bernadette, nice to see you. Yeah, having let go of so many ideas of what it is to be awake, so many ideas of what it is to be a self, all that kind of stuff. You know, to be, from one point of view, you could say, to be awake. You know, like, I would have thought that meant much less sorrow and grief at the point of being with a suffering, dying friend, and it was totally the opposite. It was totally the opposite, because there was nothing in the way, nothing around my heart to stop it from feeling. All, yeah, it's like the full grief of the universe meeting itself, to show, it's kind of showing up for itself about how precious this living incarnation is. You know, to be alive is a real gift, and I think it's universally known. um, when we cloud it with thoughts of character and identity, we don't really feel that universal knowing love. But yeah, so it totally took me by surprise that, actually, because I've been with loved ones before when they've passed away, including my mum, and but from a much more self-identified place. Um, but here, like, there was just presence, just total presence and love, and what felt like infinite grief, but not grief as in a negative, infinite grief as love showing up for it, like, yeah, the preciousness of life alongside my dear loved one as she passed away. And it was without a doubt one of the most beautiful experiences of my life, but also such like a it was both transcendent in a way, isn't like beyond the ideas of life and death. You know, to be so close to death and feel so alive, like to fit, like to be with death, actually, right there with, you know, energetically with the death of another, and feeling my body vibrating with life was, well, it's beyond, it's so beyond, but also it's just so human, so richly human. It felt like it's such a deeply human experience. And it's just, yeah, it was really precious. Um, but I guess like if I had any ideal of what it means to be awake, any, you know, uh, thing that I'm shooting for is, you know, there can't be sorrow, there can't be grief, there can't be these real human experiences. If I had any idea of that, then I would have just like squashed it all down. You know, this natural flowing of love would have just been tried to be mitigated through a view. But because that wasn't there, it, like, the body knew exactly how to meet the moment, exactly how to meet my loved one, and to care for her. So I was caring for her for the last few days of her life as well. And it was just like one of the most simple times, because it was just, I deeply knew exactly what to do. Not I knew, as in like the body, the organism deeply knew exactly how to give love and compassion. And like I said, waves of love and tears would arise, but it was not a single molecule of negativity in any of it. Despite the days of outpouring of grief, it felt totally natural and totally right, you know. So yeah, it felt like a real gift. But the reason I mention this is because I don't want, you know, I don't want to wake up to something that is beyond this deep, rich human expression. What's the point? The deep, rich human expression of life is, for me, it feels like the gift that we've got of being human. Like, if I get to be as human as possible whilst I'm alive as a human being without any barriers, I mean, that's it, isn't it? That's a life fully lived as far as I can see. So Bernadette, hello. I wanted to come back to you because it's really nice to hear from you. So what's your thought about getting to the point where you feel you're choiceless? The personal will cannot do it anymore. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it sounds like you're experiencing a little bit of that. I think it's more to do with, well, it's tricky, isn't it? It's more to do with uh, the momentum of what it is in us that wants to wake up, the truest part of us that wants to wake up to be life. And I would say that's the deepest, most human part of us. Yeah, that is, you can't stop it. Basically, you get to a point where it won't stop. You can't throttle it, and the more you try to throttle it, the more it hurts actually. And you noticed like struggle and resistance and negotiating is one that happens quite a lot. So like you get trying to negotiate with the situation when actually the situation doesn't need anything. It's just life unfolding. So yeah, I mean, I don't have many thoughts about that other than it plays out the way it plays out. I think ultimately what it comes down to, I say in the end, there's no end, but when it starts to settle and starts to be fully experienced, you recognize it's just collaboration all of the time. There's no separate will or separate self doing. There's not even the non-doing. There is a doingness that is collaborative, that isn't self-centered. It's so hard to talk about. I don't really know how to say it, but it's like there's just this continual, moment by moment, collaborative expression, which you are totally part of, but it's also not you. So yeah, and how that shows up, it's surprising. It can be really surprising. So yeah, I've kind of gone on a little bit of a journey. I was just going to test out my camera and mic, but I'm so glad people have shown up. Um, I want to do more of this kind of stuff, but it's going to be like health dependent, basically. I need to see how I feel ultimately. So these things can change day by day. So today's a day where there's some resource. So just kind of riding that wave of resource. I guess one other thing to explore. Would love to experience First Awakening to know what you're talking about. Veritable Vagabond. I love that. Yeah, I love that username. Well, that's the trip, isn't it? So what I'm talking about is this right here, right now, what we are. It's always what we are. It's way simpler than you think it is. So I can kind of point there a little bit, but the character and the story and the mind has been telling us all our life that we are this individual with a clear past, and we're going towards a future, and we're mitigating life through this point, like this central point that we call a self. All of this is imagined, but it really does feel like that. And yet we can still feel, in every moment we can feel more than just the point. You're feeling it right now. Feel your hands. Just feel your hands. Do that. Just go, whoa, bang them together. No room for story in that, is there? Yeah, the story is so immediate. It's like, I bang my hands together. I'm feeling this. So it's interesting that actually awakening, it's not a big deal, really. And I think what you really get a lot of the time is, I know it sounds a bit odd saying it's not a big deal considering I've made like 80 videos on this stuff. But it's people think that it's an attainment that you get. It's just waking up to what's going on right now without wanting it or feeling that it needs to change, or that the experience needs to be mitigated through a point of view. Now, you don't have to work that hard to get that. In fact, I know a lot of people that just gradually, by following the spiritual life, you call it the spiritual life, you can call it whatever you want, but just with regular practice, regular meditation, regular inquiry into who we are, what our true nature is, this self-centered clench that wants to grasp around experience, it just starts softening. And that was the case for me. One of the reasons I don't speak about my awakening, whatever that is because actually it wasn't a big deal. It wasn't this big thing that all these people online are talking about. It was this very, very gradual, over many, many years, dropping away, dropping away, dropping away, dropping away. It just kind of slid off me, if that makes sense. And then you find yourself, or you don't find yourself, you don't find anything, but you are in a situation apparently one day where, there's not much left of the self-identifying mechanism. I mean, there's a lot left. There's all of life left, but there's just not a lot left of that which I used to take myself to be. But yeah, so it's very different for different people. I know a lot of people that have this boo lightning bolt, like real paradigm shift situation, and that's great. But I think what I'm coming into contact with a lot of people is, okay, let's say you have this big awakening. You have this big aha, like the self, that clench that we take ourselves to be, that thought-based mind identification being, that's suddenly seen through and there's all this freedom. Okay, yeah, then what? What are you going to do? And people are just falling over left, right, and center at this point because they go, I don't really, I was chasing this thing and now I got the thing, but the thing, just like anything else that came, it went, because things come and go. And then people are found really rudderless because actually they don't have a lot of strong fundamentals, you could say, like strong foundations in presence, in mindfulness, in self-acceptance. So yeah, it's a bit of a roundabout way of saying you don't necessarily have to chase awakening too hard. one of the things that will benefit you the most is a regular mindfulness practice, a regular inquiry practice, and trying to use every moment as an opportunity to explore. Like if you nurture curiosity in the moment, life just gets way more interesting, to the point that sometimes you just go, oh, I don't really care about awakening. And there you find yourself awake. It's so peculiar. Hey, Steph, can you speak of relaxing into the way things are and gently overcoming the fear barriers to this awakeness or this infiniteness? Yeah, the infiniteness and the awakeness is what you already are. So actually, there's nothing really for you to relax into. Now, I don't want to sound all non-dually, but all I'm trying to say is that it's your true nature. It is what this is, this total availability, this collaborative openness is what we are. And that openness accommodates the apparent Stephs and the Simons to be ourselves as well. So yeah, there's fear. Of course there's fear. There's like often, well, you've got two types of fear, haven't you? You've got the psychological fear. So the fear of the mind that tells a story that wants to recoil. And then you've got the physiological fear. Normally the physiological fear is like, there's a tiger in the room. Ah, I've not been in many rooms with tigers, but you know, the different types of things. But often it's a psychological fear, and it's the story or kind of story combined with the felt experience, trying to get us to back away from being truly present, being truly what we are, because it feels like it's going to be too much. We're not going to be able to cope often. So yeah, I mean, it's really natural that you're going to come into contact with fear. But, you know, like there's nothing that says you have to go charging into your fears. You know, sometimes softly, softly catch your monkey goes a long way. Like if we build up gentle ways of getting closer and closer gradually to our fear with mindfulness, awareness, and curiosity, then actually that can really, really help us. As opposed to some people would be like, no, just sit in the ashes, sit in the fear, you know, just be with it, let it burn through you. And there's a benefit to that as well, but it's not the only way. It is definitely not the only way. So sometimes, I would say all the time, really, if we learn to relax, that's going to be really beneficial for us. Hey, Jack. So really enjoying your content. Yeah, this is like so for anyone watching, thanks for tuning in. Like it's the first time I've done live, so I'm just trying to find a bit of a balance as to speaking and reading and presence. So I'm sure I'll like find equilibrium over the coming weeks, but struggle sometimes in my work is everything is so mind-based. Yeah, I feel you. I had a job exactly like that. Especially if you're working on computers, spreadsheets. I think regular breaks is good. So take regular breaks. Give yourself the chance to be in the body as much as you can. And that's hard if you're desk-based, but just going away for 5 minutes and just having a glass of water, just like going and having a simple glass of water, feel the water against your lips. You know, don't talk to anyone. You don't need to. Look around the room. You know, let the body come back alive, because I think, well, I kind of know what happens when we're in these virtual spaces. Our overall sense of awareness and being, it kind of narrows to this really hyper focused point of user and interface, and that's very, very useful. In fact, you could say it's amazing that we're able to do that. But yeah, if you stay in there too long, you'll feel, I don't know, like a dysphoria or like an anxiety, for me, it was a striving, like you know, because the body wants to be felt. So I think there's no real quick fix, but taking regular breaks in work is going to be useful. Just stepping away, having a brew, chatting to people, you know, just having a decent conversation about nothing to do with work, that can be useful. They seem really simple tools, but actually you're just allowing that grip of really tight focus to just soften every now and then. So you don't find yourself fully gripped in the spreadsheet zone, you can kind of just like let go. Every event, occurrence is an opportunity to deepen. Tell me about it. Yeah. Well, because I guess, and this kind of goes to Veritable Vagabond as well. Like every opportunity is an opportunity to practice, you could say. But what are we practicing? What are we practicing? Well, we're practicing life, aren't we? And I don't mean practicing as in getting ready to live. I mean, we're diving deeper into life. This is what we wake up to. We wake up to being a totally embodied, living, loving being. And yeah, as you say there, you want to feel the relief of a backpack getting taken off. Okay, but what if it's not that relieving? What if that relief that you're looking for is not in the thing that you're striving for? What if? What if it's just that you're not going to get what you want? Now, that might be tricky for those people on the path of awakening, but that's something we have to deal with because it's not that. If you've not had a deep shift in identity, it's not what you think it is. You think that it's like this deep, deep relief, and in a way it is, but it's also an opening of the bandwidth of availability to life, which means more love, more sorrow, more pain, more joy, like not just this narrow, mitigated view of the world, this vibrant living way of being, but it's not total relief all of the time. It isn't that. And I know people kind of sell it as that, but yeah, life can be challenging, like I mentioned before. You know, if you have, as Jack was talking about before, if you have a difficult job and the job is challenging and it's difficult to stay awake and it's uninteresting, well, those uninteresting things are really felt. You really feel how uninteresting the disinterest is. You really feel how boring something can be. You actually feel it as opposed to just flying off in the mind. You really feel it. So yeah, I guess the reason I mention it is because a lot of people chase awakening like it's like a fix-all, like it's going to provide us with long-lasting relief for life forever. And it's really not quite like that. That doesn't mean that it's not the most I would say the most valuable movement we can make. It definitely is. But also, it's valuable in an order that I can't really talk about. It's valuable because it opens us up to stuff. It stops us having to, manage so many things. I hate being egocentric. I hate how the mind causes problems for itself. Oh, yeah. I mean, I feel you. So what does that hate feel like? What would it be like to feel that hatred? You know, like there's part of you that's really saying, I don't want to be egocentric. I don't want to be it. I hate it. Okay, feel that hatred. What does that feel like? Where is it? You said you hate's a feeling. Where is it? Where is the hate? Not in the mind. Not what's the story of hatred. What's the feeling of hatred? Would it be possible right now to feel just a little bit of that, as opposed to being lost in the I hate this, I love this, I dislike that? No, go right here into the body and feel, okay, this is what anger feels like. This is what hatred feels like. And it's okay, I can be with it. That might sound really simple, but this is the key really to being free, you could say, or waking up to life. Just really directly experiencing the like that, that sometimes it can just be like this, oh, fucking hell, like friction. Feel it, just feel it, go there, allow yourself to feel it if you have capacity. If it's too much, stop. But really, I definitely encourage it, like recognizing that the mind wants to play the love-hate relationship, but the body just wants to feel, the being just wants to feel, this life wants to be lived. So do you feel without your illness that would never have become the person? Yeah, impossible to know. I mean, see, yeah. So asking about experiences is tricky because I'm just not separate from any of it. Like, I've got some close friends that clearly reflect back to me that actually what I've been through, you could say what I've been through, what the organism's been through, it has been fundamental in shaping my life and my path. And it's definitely been a moving factor of the heart opening and me wanting to meet, suffering with compassion, because I really do know what suffering is like. That's not, and if that sounds like a glow, I wish I wasn't able to say it in a lot of ways. I really know what pain feels like. So what that means is that if I can offer just some peace of mind to some people, it feels like the most natural thing in the world. So I guess in a way you could say that, yeah, my illness and like my history of trauma has shaped me, and it's oriented me towards a path of care and compassion, definitely, and sharing that with you guys. May I ask if you offer any sessions? Yep, yeah, I do. So I offer one-to-one sessions. They're on a donation basis, so there's no charge, no fixed fee, but people have the opportunity to give if they want to. My capacity has been low at the moment, so I've not really been able to do it, unfortunately. So I've had to cancel a few sessions, but ultimately, it feels like I'm getting more and more capacity. So yeah, I think maybe in the next 2, 3, maybe 4 weeks, I'm going to look to start offering one-to-one sessions again. So yeah, people would like it. And I mean, the one-to-one sessions, if anyone's interested, they're different to this, because this is just kind of like, it's a bit one way for me. I love collaborating with people. I love that natural thing that comes out of two people or more in communication. There's something so magical about that. It's not totally my favorite thing, just talking and talking and talking. It's all right, but I'd much rather multiple people kind of blossoming and sharing and exploring, kind of like a bit like a dance. Because actually, what always is the case, and is definitely the case in the one-to-one sessions, something much greater than the sum of its parts arises, something beyond me or the other, and even us, something blossoms that I can't describe. And really, the one-to-one sessions are a chance for us to access that, a chance for us to see if we can feel, that thing that comes about in communication, in collaboration. So if that interests any of you, yeah, and we can talk about anything. We can talk about trauma or whatever, or awakening or illness. But really, I try to focus on, the nature of experience, really, what experience feels like and how we can open to it. So yeah, I've been on for 54 minutes. Yeah, sorry if this has been a bit bitty, like a bit back and forth. Like I said, this is my first time doing this kind of format. So I'm starting to just get into it. I'm definitely not a professional at this kind of stuff. So, being online or being like a public figure, but I'm learning. I hope it's useful at least for some people. Do you think there are highs and lows of spirituality? Some days you feel connected to the higher power, and other days, no matter how hard you try, you don't feel so spiritual. Oh yeah, that's it. I mean, that's life, isn't it? That's what life is like. I think anyone who says they feel totally immersed in spirit and, the absolute shining light of experience all of the time, well, maybe they're not being so genuine, because actually the human experience, the experience of being a human, which is part of that, which is not separate from it, isn't that, is it? When I can sense how would I describe this? I can sense the deep truth in my experience. You could say the empty essence of my own nature all of the time. And yet, that's no use to me to be completely open and empty and non-local when I'm with a patient that I'm working with. I work in a mental health facility. So when I'm working with mental health patients, they need humans. We need human interaction. So yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about if some days you feel totally spiritually connected and then the next day you feel right in the midst of your humanity. It's all the same stuff. It's all the same stuff. There's no the human grit and the juice and the highs and the lows. That's the expression of the ultimate. It's the expression of, you could say the highest spiritual truths, whatever they are, but they express through our humanity. And for me, when we're free, when we are free from delusion, then we can just naturally, we don't do anything. Life just naturally flows between those states, whatever's appropriate. Whatever's appropriate arises in any moment. So right now, as an example, I don't know if this will work, but let's try it. So right now, as an example, I can feel very, very deeply this indescribable spiritual quality is all I can say about it. You could call it the true empty nature of being. I mean, it's just words, isn't it? But it's known, it's in my experience, it's in every fiber of my being. And yet, there's a very specific thing going on. There's a very specific interaction of me and camera, words, individuals, me speaking. Like, I can see myself on screen. That's got its own particular flavor. It's a bit peculiar. So it's a very human thing going on. And yet at no point is the truth ever negated. In fact, it's the true, empty, unbound ground of being that allows this to facilitate it. Allows this to facilitate it. Wow, so there's no point when billions of sentient beings suffer, no matter our woo nonsense. I'm sorry you feel that way, Lily. Are you suffering right now? And if you are, I mean, we're here for you. That's kind of what this is about. We're here to kind of meet each other's suffering with compassion. That's all this is. That's all this is. And I'm sorry if life feels a bit pointless. I know it can, but there's always the capacity for love. Always the capacity for love. It's always here. And there are loving expressions in the smallest of things if we're able to see them. In my second IOP this year, brushing up on DBT skills. My logical brain is great. It's a condition from the past trauma that is holding me back. Okay, so you might need to help me a little bit with IOP and DBT. I'm not entirely sure what they mean. Yeah, logical brain is a condition from the past trauma. Yeah, conditioning from past trauma is a very, very difficult thing to work with. It's just extremely challenging because it's cellular. It's baked into the nervous system, and it's a very gradual process. So I'm sorry that you're working with that, and I can totally relate. If you get a chance to work with another in relation to trauma healing, or maybe like somatic based trauma therapy, that can be really helpful. Okay. Dialectical behavior. Yeah, I understand. Thank you. Yeah. So dialectical behavior therapy. So yeah, Veritable Vagabond. Have I tried TRE? Yeah, I have, and it worked well. This is only my experience, and I think it's a useful thing to talk about. So TRE, trauma release experiencing or trauma releasing experiencing, like it's useful for those momentary expressions of fixed trauma patterns. What it doesn't do as far as I can see, yeah, what it doesn't do, TRE, is help us to retrain the nervous system, help us to learn how to, and I don't mean learn up here, help the nervous system how to learn over time to regulate itself with, healthy responses. I say healthy, it's not like hitting, a specific mark up here. Healthy means fluidity, being able to inhabit different modes of being very easily. Normally, a regulated nervous system can go from alertness to like going into rest, relaxation, fear if we need it. Sometimes we need to be scared. A healthy nervous system flows between those states quite naturally. So trauma interrupts that. Now, TRE is useful for kind of literally shaking off some of the trap patterns. What it doesn't do is help us build capacity, really. So I think being used as part of a bigger remit. So that includes TRE, but also includes more somatic-based therapies, long-term nervous system rehabilitation that lasts multiple years. And that can include TRE for sure, yeah, but on its own, it doesn't really get to the deep roots of trauma, as far as, in my experience anyway. Yeah, so I'm probably going to leave you guys there. I mean, it's interesting. Sentient beings, so if even once innocent sentient being suffers, we should all suffer. I mean, that's a point of view, isn't it? That's a point of view. That's you stating a point of view. And that's no more true than any other point of view that's ever existed. It's simply something that's arisen in your mind, and it feels like it's true, and then it's being discussed. But all viewpoints, every single viewpoint, including a lot of the ones that have arisen here, they're all of the same nature, and that is they're impermanent and not ultimately true. And really, the idea of awakening is to move towards a peace, you could say, or a freedom that is beyond fixing on views. Really love your live. Your authenticity provided warmth and safety. I know nothing's over here, but still. Oh, thanks so much. Yeah, it's been really nice to be here with you. I'll try and do a bit. I'll advertise a bit more. I used to do group sessions for free. Like group Zoom sessions. So let's try that. Maybe that'd be nice. Like once I feel up for it again, gives chance to have more. Well, we can talk. So that's always kind of my preference, to have a bit of like verbal back and forth, and to do some shared practice, some maybe shared meditation. So maybe a couple more questions. Being dysregulated. Oh, yeah, being dysregulated is my norm. Sometimes the conditioning is strong. I feel you. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing specifically for me to say. I just fully feel you. Because yeah, it's hard. It's really, really hard to be with. And my heart goes out to you. I think we need suffering to grow. Without suffering, we would not evolve. Yeah, it's an interesting point. I'm probably not going to get involved in whether that's true or not. I think the truth of awakening that I speak about is moving beyond those views of growth, or beyond those views of being better or evolution. It's finding peace right here. Being able to find peace right here, even in the midst of challenge, pain, there is a peace that's available that isn't bound by views in the mind. But yeah, thanks for tuning in, and yeah, thanks for all your lovely collaborations. I really appreciate hearing from you. If you have any questions anytime, you can send me a message on Insta. There's you can DM me on Insta, and I hope to see you all again soon. Bye. I don't know how to end it. 1 second. I'll try again. Bye.